She was never meant to be more than a footnote. A child created in the shadow of war. A name without a number. An echo of something forgotten by time. But hidden in her blood is a truth untouched, unbent, unclaimed. The galaxy looked past her, and in doing so, it overlooked the one thing it could not control. While empires rose and fell, while legends burned and faded, she remained unaltered, unchanged, unbroken. Omega was the secret they buried without knowing. A spark too pure to fit inside the systems that tried to erase the soul from science. She did not arrive with prophecy. She arrived with purpose. Palpatine sought immortality through corruption, through cloning, through the desecration of life itself. His legacy was a parade of failures. Fractured vessels and voices that echoed only madness. But there was one variable he could never replicate. One blueprint he never corrupted. One constant he could never bend to his will. In a galaxy built on deception, she is truth. In a timeline soaked in control, she is freedom. She does not wield power like a saber. She carries it like memory. She is not the strongest, not the chosen, but perhaps the only one who remembers what came before everything was rewritten in fear. The clones were made to serve, to be spent, to disappear. But in her, their story breathes. Not as warriors, but as people. Not as weapons, but as warnings. She is their echo, their hope, their final defense against a future built on their erasure. And in her silence, there is defiance. In this video, we explored the theory that Omega's unmodified DNA could be the key to unraveling everything Palpatine built. From his failed experiments to the nightmare that became Snoke, we break down how purity became rebellion, how a forgotten clone became a symbol of resistance, and how the smallest thread in the story might be the one that unravels the Empire's final lie. Omega was never meant to matter. Just another clone in a sea of silence, created on Camino, overlooked by empires and experiments alike. But there is something different about her, something forgotten in plain sight. She is the overlooked origin, the beginning they never thought to protect. She is unmodified, untouched by the genetic tampering that shaped her brothers, a raw echo of Jango Fett, pure, undisturbed, preserved like a secret, not because she was special, but because no one was watching. She was the anomaly that remained authentic, while everything else evolved beyond recognition. While other clones were bred for obedience, enhanced for war, erased for control, Omega remained constant. She is the origin before the edits, the blueprint before corruption, a living relic of what the Empire could not replicate. Her DNA is a time capsule, untouched by control and unclouded by intent. And now, as Palpatine reaches into science to conquer death, as cloning becomes the cornerstone of his twisted legacy, Omega stands in quiet opposition, not as a weapon, but as a flaw in the equation. She is the variable the equation cannot balance, the outlier that makes all predictions fail, because purity is unpredictable, and the Emperor's greatest mistake may be thinking perfection comes from control. When the real key was always hidden in the clone, they forgot, and now, that forgotten key may be what finally opens the last locked door. Palpatine feared death more than failure. He clawed through science, dark rituals, stolen blood, all to conquer what the Force would not grant. Cloning was not ambition, it was desperation. And desperation always leaves a trail of destruction behind it. He turned Camino and brilliance into cruelty, splicing life into vessels, creating puppets like Snoke, empty, malformed, unstable, and still, it was never enough. The darkness he summoned could not escape decay. Every creation was a shadow. Every attempt to scream for immortality he could never claim. Every attempt required something he lacked, a source he could not replicate. He corrupted the code, mixed bloodlines, bent nature to his will, but the results always shattered. Broken minds, failed vessels, half-lives destined to collapse. The science betrayed him because he never understood the soul it tried to copy. And somewhere in that madness, Omega became his undoing. Not by fighting, not by striking back, but simply by existing. Her uncorrupted DNA, her untouched lineage, it holds the truth he never grasped. In a world of mutations, she was the constant, the control he overlooked. Because, in all his power, Palpatine could not create what he did not understand, and Omega was the answer he never thought to question. The question he feared most was the one her blood could answer without effort. The clones were never just soldiers. They were sons made for slaughter, born into a war they didn't choose, and discarded the moment they were no longer useful. Their identities were stripped, their future erased, their purpose used. They were tools, not people, until the war no longer needed tools. Each one was altered, programmed, shackled by orders and numbers. Even their faces were not their own. They lived for a cause, died for a lie, and faded into memory without a name. Their lives were spent in service of silence, with no one left to remember the sound of their voices. But Omega, she carries their history, not just in blood, but in soul. She remembers, she questions, she mourns. She is the last untouched note in a song that was rewritten too many times. Her existence gives their suffering context. Her memory keeps their legacy from fading completely. Her DNA is not just science, it is truth. The unbroken line to what they were before war claimed them, before chips were planted, before the Force was corrupted by power and politics. It is the only piece of their story that remains unfiltered, unrewritten, unforgotten. And in her, there is grief. A grief that speaks for the millions who never had a choice. A grief that might be the only thing pure enough to restore what was lost. Her survival is their echo, a voice whispering through the silence left behind. To understand Omega is to understand balance. She is not enhanced, not manipulated, not bound to destiny or doctrine. She simply is, and in that simplicity there is strength. She is the calm in the chaos, the seed untouched by fire. The Force moves through all life, but when life is tampered with, the current breaks. The clones were engineered. Snoke was twisted, Palpatine was hollowed by his own obsession, but Omega remains untouched, a steady flame in a storm of shadows. She flows with the current, instead of trying to bend it. Her existence disproves the narrative, that power must come from manipulation, that legacy must come from domination. She is the natural order, thriving without augmentation, surviving without allegiance. She lives by instinct, not instruction. There is something profound in her stillness, something sacred in her silence. She is the key, not because she fights, but because she remembers. Not because she is strong, but because she is whole. She is proof that integrity still exists, that truth can be preserved. Hope rarely arrives with thunder. It comes quietly, through choices, through sacrifice, through the courage to remain yourself in a world that wants to reshape you. Omega is that hope, living, breathing, waiting. She is not forged in fire, but in refusal to change for anyone. She doesn't wear armor, she doesn't command armies, but she carries something no one else does. The past unbroken, the future undefined. A piece of the galaxy not yet claimed by the Empire's grip. Her power lies not in action, but in presence. The rebellion was built on fire and resistance, but what if its final spark comes from healing, from something pure instead of powerful? Omega's path is not forged in conflict, but in compassion. She restores what was stolen, not with weapons, but with memory. She connects the lost to the living, the fallen to the forgotten. She brings meaning back to the clones, and with her, the potential to undo what Palpatine twisted beyond repair. She holds both the scar and the remedy, the past and the path forward. If there is a way to end the Empire's legacy of control, of domination, of engineered life and stolen futures, it might not come from a lightsaber, but from her. The smallest voice might undo the loudest empire. The Empire did not fall when the Death Star exploded, or when Palpatine was thrown into the abyss. It lingered in shadows, in secrets, in science, whispering through failed clones and hollow vessels. It survived in the very DNA it tried to master, and it used that survival to rebuild its cruelty again and again. But Omega stands in contrast to all of it, a mirror held to a generation of violence. Her presence is not loud, not legendary, but it speaks of a different future, one not written in power, but in memory. She does not fight to win. She endures to remind. She is the unanswered question in a galaxy built on absolutes, the flaw in the system that thought it had all the answers. Palpatine sought eternal life, but what he feared most was truth, and she carries it in her blood. The truth that life is not meant to be controlled, only respected.